First of all, Ask FM asked me to. Ask FM asked me to. Sounds funny. Announced that they have some competition going on in their booth, where you can win iPad. So and the winner will be announced around 6 p.m. So in the break, go there, participate in the competition. So after lunch, great time to start. Everyone feels a little bit tired, probably. If you fall asleep during my presentation, please tweet the last thing what you remember from my presentation, so I know where the boring part is and I can remove it. I'm Erno Aapa. I'm coming from Helsinki, Finland. At the moment, I'm working on a company called Shark Punch. I'm also founder of DevOps Finland meetup group, where is around 700 members at the moment. Oh, this is. And yeah, I'm gonna tell you some story how I move from larger enterprise companies and why I went to the small startup and what I have learned there. Can you, all developers, put your hands up? Oh, wow, almost everyone. How about everyone who doesn't work for a small startup? You're working for enterprise companies. All right. Okay. How about, is there any operations engineers or sysadmins and such? Few. All right. And do you guys work for small startups? There's at least one. All right. So I moved from, I used to be developer, and like you guys, you put your hand first up, and I end up to be you, basically. But I need to tell you a little bit about my background first, because otherwise I might piss off some people. Around 2005, I worked for a factory. I was some kind of sysadmin there. And I saw one employee using their banking system, and it was horrible. It was crashing all the time, and they had to do a lot of all kind of things. And I started to wonder, like, there must be a better way to do these things. There must be a better way to build software. That cannot be the best one. So that's the reason when I decided, all right, I want to be a developer. I want to build great software. And I ended up to be a consult in a small company, and around, I would say, in this picture around continuous integration, at that time, we already had a great practices like Agile and so on. We also wrote tests and everything. At the same time, I realized, okay, it feels strange that I need to like SSH to server and do all this fancy stuff to deploy our code, and I really feel like, okay, this is not right. There must be a better way again, and I feel this same feeling, and end up reading continuous delivery, reading more and more about it, and I realized, yeah, hey, there is a better way to do these things. Slowly moving, going forward. I started to feel like, okay, now we're testing, we're automatically deploying our code, but for some reason, working with the operation team is really pain in the ass. Like to get one port open, it took like 3 months at that time. Like, come on, that can't be so hard. I actually don't know what to do it and how to do it, but like, getting this one port open, it was really hard, having some ticket to some ticket system. So I started to talk to my brother-in-law about this, like, hey, we need to do something to better this between the developers and operation team. something wrong with this. This is not the right way to go. And he said to me, like, have you heard about DevOps? And I was, yeah, I have heard about it. But to be honest, actually, it's kind of hard to understand. What's the point? I tried to Google it and tried to read Wikipedia and everything. I didn't find the manifesto or anything, so I skip it. And he said, like, hey, Erno, maybe you should take a look at that, because it sounds like that you're actually talking about what those guys are talking about. So, end up reading DevOps, still trying to understand what the hell is going on. But I realized that it's really hard to talk with anyone about the DevOps. I need to get more. I couldn't, in my company, I tried to talk with people, but they didn't know what it's all about. So I ended up creating a DevOps Finland meetup group. After talking about DevOps in Finland mostly, at some point, I started to feel like, okay, I now know how to this operation and developers should work together, how to automate stuff and so on, how to write good code. But then I wanted to talk about, or I had the feeling like, okay, the enterprises, the big companies doesn't work like really fast. They could work much faster. And I felt like, okay, and there was actually at the same time a lot of blog posts and talk about like, okay, enterprises should work like startups. And actually it started to make sense. And yay, all right, I will have a presentation about like how the enterprises should be a startup. And then I realized, okay, I cannot talk about that because I didn't know anything about startups. I've never been there. It just feels like it makes sense. So this year, decided, all right, I jump off from the enterprise and consulting business, and I go to startup to see how everything goes. But you know, when you tweet about DevOps and have a presentation about DevOps and talking about everywhere, especially when you add it to your LinkedIn profile, guess what happens? This happens. Suddenly, your email is full of like job offers. Hey, come here. We need this dude who write the code and then test it and build the awesome delivery system there and do the operation stuff and maybe a little bit marketing and maybe actually can you do also this and that and that. And you have to have 20 years of experience around everything. Hey, come on, I'm 30 years old. I cannot do that. It's impossible. But that's what happened. And one common thing with quite many of these job offers had, they thought that the DevOps is some magic guy who can do two-man's job, like development and operation at the same time. Hey, that sounds awesome, of course, but that's not true. I don't believe that. That was great, right? All right. How many of you have heard about camps when talking about DevOps? All right, one. So people said that this is the root of DevOps and what is in DevOps all about. We already had a great talk about culture. That's a really important part of DevOps in the DevOps movement. Automation, measurement, and sharing. Automate everything to all the repeating job to speed up your deployment, to make the code go from developer to operation faster and more safe way. Measure or metrics or measurement. It's about getting feedback, like monitoring the server but also monitoring the application and getting the feedback and sharing that you share basically everything. Like you share code, you share failures, you share the success between the different groups like operation and developers. Quite often I don't know why I think about this whole thing like a project and or the team around boats. It might be because nowadays in the last 2 years you have heard only about containers and shipping and Docker and maybe that's the reason why I always come to my mind is a boat. If you think about like your product is the boat and your team is all the employees there, everyone have own responsibility, but you have to have really good culture there. You have to work together. It cannot be so that when the captain says like, hey, turn to right or speed up, and the people in the engine room replies that, okay, you're in the queue and it takes 3 months to make the turn. It doesn't work like that. It has to be really fast. They have to work together to drive the boat. Also, sometimes it feels like it's like the companies, like the boat. Like some companies are really cannot be really agile. The boat is like really slowly turning, but like small startups are like small boats which are going like crazy all the time. It's like same thing. But I think like all the camps like the culture, automation. There have to be automation in the boat to go forward. Measurement. You have to have in the captain have to have see how fast we are going, where we're going, in which direction. They have the measurement somewhere, and they have the dashboards for the captain, and also they share the failure. If the boat sinks, they all fail. It's not like, hey, the captain failed, but we all died. Basically, everyone failed at that time. So, last few years, I have had one idea, what I try to follow all the time. I try to make yourself replaceable. And I bet quite many of you at the moment thinks that, hey, that Jew is stupid or something. Why would you want to make yourself replaceable? You don't want to lose job. Doesn't make any sense. If we check what replaceable means, so refer to putting one person in place of another. That means like someone else in our company can come on my seat or take my job while I'm somewhere else, like talking in conferences. Another interesting thing is that putting one person or thing, it doesn't need to be someone else. It can be some automation tool or someone who replaced my job. So what's bad if you're irreplaceable? Basically, you repeat the same stuff over and over again. Like, I think I see always in every little bit larger company, there's these managers. And if you look at them, what they actually do, they every week produce some graph or PowerPoint presentation. They repeat the same stuff over and over again. Like, what's the point? Why we cannot like produce the graph automatically and get rid of that guy or move it to some other job? Also, if you're repeating the same stuff over and over again, you don't progress, you don't learn anything new, you don't have time for any innovation or anything, but also the company stays all the time really same. They don't go forward. So if you start to think like, okay, actually I'm doing this one job all the time, and I don't let anyone to do that, get rid of that. Share the knowledge. If you have some task what no one other can in the company do, teach it to someone else. When next time when someone asks like, hey, can you do the thing again for me. Why don't you just ask, like, hey, I will help you to learn how to do it. After that, next time the person can do it by themselves. And suddenly you have much more time to do something else. For instance, innovate something new, try some new technology, use something good for that. Right, so I used to work for larger companies. Actually, I realized that my large companies are actually not so large when I heard about Atlas and so on. But anyway, quite huge company, or they have the same enterprise kind of culture. And this year, I decided, all right, that's it. I want to see the startup. I jumped to Shark Punch. It's a small company. Few years since set it up, but basically they have built the product like half year now, or 1 year or something. And I went there as an operations engineer because I used to be a developer, but I want to see and I want to learn more about operation work. And guess what I did in first week? This was my first week. I built the perfect plan how I will make the awesome system, which will be running on Amazon, automatically scales and use all the fancy technologies like Kubernetes or Mesos and so on, Docker, and it will be perfect. Like it will be like machine. And after 1 week, at the Friday, I present this idea in the company, and everyone was like, all right, Erno, so you have spent 1 week for planning, and we have 6 months' time. When we run out of money, what about if you start doing something real and stop the planning? And at first, it was really felt bad, actually, because like you have to do some planning and you have to think about like what if in 1 year we will have 1 million users, how we will scale and everything. But if we have only 6 months' time to build something, it doesn't make sense to look at 1 year forward. And I realized that actually this is what we need. We need something really much simple, not some crazy robot. We need something simple to go forward and test out our ideas. And to be able to test out these ideas in next 6 months, we need to build a lot. We have to test, develop everything, put it on live, test out on our users, realize what actually is the thing what our customers want. So because I had the developer background, I realized that, all right, I have to minimize the amount I spent on operation work and maximize the amount I do normal daily development work. So that's why I ended up here, maybe also ended up here to talk about how I minimize the time running operations. First, I get rid of all the legacy servers. This is quite young company, so they didn't have so much. But I realized, like, after I started to think all the previous companies where I used to be, oh man, there's a lot of those machines. What are? Yeah, it used to be there. Well, just keep on running it there. But it takes your time. It takes time you to update it and take care of it. Even talk about it. Another thing is that, like, self-hosting stuff is, of course, it's an interesting thing, but also it requires a lot of your time. You have to keep up the servers, you have to install everything. Time to time, there are some issues, you have to fix them. But if you buy them as a service, it's not your problem anymore. Someone else take care of that. Of course, it costs money, but I will come back to this later. And as a developer, first when you start to look at the code and you realize, okay, there is a lot of this kind of code, but you can, yeah, it's just there, like some old legacy code, but you just keep it there because I might need someday. But keeping that code up to date, it takes your time. So get rid of that. We have version control for all legacy code. The next thing, what I started to do is try to make this whole system as simple as possible. Like in every product, and especially in startup, you build a lot of stuff, but also in enterprises, there's a lot of, in the project there's a lot of features what actually probably people don't use at all. They used to be good, people used to like it, but they don't use it anymore. So why keep it there? Just remove it. Technology stack. It's quite often it goes to another direction that you want to add something new and more and more and more. It's actually really hard to make it really, really simple. Especially when it comes to the all the servers and how you run your code. It's really hard to, because you want to, okay, maybe I add some Docker and all this good, nice stuff. But actually you're adding a lot of stuff there. If you want to make it really, really simple, so simple that everyone in the company knows it. But you should not oversimplify. I have seen this also in one company where they had this policy that all the projects have to be Java, specific version, have to use specific tools. At first, it sounds like it makes sense. Like, yeah, it's easy to maintain these 10 different projects if all of them use the same tool and same technology. But I think it's also a bad thing because it will kill the innovation. The development team, at some point, they want to use some other technology. But if your whole stack is built on that, and whole delivery and pipeline and everything is built on that it's Java project. Actually, in this company, their development tool was also in Java. So they were really, really locked on that. And I think it's not a good idea. And the rest of the time, I was be able to cut off by making myself replaceable. When I get some tool, log collection aggregation tool, or actually service, what I get, I just gave to the team access there. I had a presentation talk for them, like, hey, this is how you use it. Now it's your like, I'm done. It's your work to look at the logs, take care of that. I don't want to take that responsibility. There's so easily you can lock yourself to be the administrator of some specific tool, but it that you're locked. It's locked to yourself, like then only behind you. But it's better to spread it around, give the job to everyone else. About simplicity, I have this example. Actually, this is from Ansible newsletter. Matt gave me a promise to tell the same story about two different companies, Intrepid and Titanic. They're not actually real names, so don't Google that. First of all, the Titanic, they had a 5 million revenue. They have 3 sysadmins there, 20 servers, and operation cost was 60,000 a month. No, first it sounds like, all right, that's quite common, maybe. How about other really similar company? They had 150 million revenue. They didn't have any sysadmin at all. Developers were taking care of the operation stuff. Only 4 servers, and operations cost was really low. How they managed to do this? Because they didn't have sysadmins, they had to build really simple system. Because they didn't know how to use some fancy tools and so on. But that's why they managed to create a really low-cost system. And if we check how much they spent money to create 1 million revenue, the difference is huge. And guess, probably everyone can guess which company is up still today. So if I have learned something in startup at the moment, buy everything what you can as a service. It feels like, oh yeah, you're in startup and talking like that, but it starts to make sense. If, for instance, if I take a look at setting up a log aggregation system, which collects logs everywhere to one single place, how much would it cost if I make it by myself? That's just some random number, or developer, or my cost of the company. Okay, let's say €100 dollar per day, 5 days to set up because I want to automate everything and make it perfect and nice, and it have to be scalable and so on. So it takes $500 to set it up, and then a few hundreds cost per month to keep it up to date. Because every day it needs time from me, like every month. You have to change disk or something else, scale it, or so on. What about if I buy it as a service? All these services are really easy to get started. Usually you can just log in there and create an account. Quite often you don't need to give the credit card either. And it takes like 1 day for me. For the company, it doesn't cost much. And the monthly costs are quite low. And I think at the moment now, some people think, yeah, but how about in long term? It doesn't go like that. Yeah, that's true. At some point, these costs will cut. I'm sure. But especially when you're in startup, anyway, at some point, someone buys you, or you move somewhere else, or join with someone, and you have to rethink the whole stack again. Like most of you are working in larger companies, it makes sense to have some common tools hosted by yourself, because you're going to be running that really long. But in small startups, it makes sense. But also it's a really great way to test out some tools and technologies. If you, even in large companies, maybe why not first try buy it as a service, and later on host it by yourself. So, like I said, I want to be a replaceable. I want to be a lazy, push all my work to everyone else, so I can go to conferences to have talks. So, one important thing is that you actually almost have to force the team to not depend on you. Quite common way how you deploy your software, more or less, still in quite many companies, it goes something like this. The developer creates a code, give it to test manager, they test it, give it to release manager, operation engineer, finally deploys it. First of all, none of these guys are replaceable here. They have to be there. Also, there's a huge risk in every step to deliver the software. I wanted to do it like this. All right, I'm responsible of the operation, like the system, but it's your developer job to do the whole thing, deploy the code. I just make sure that there is automation which do it nicely, clean way, run test and so on. And also, like the test manager and other developers, they're like side by side. They're producing together something really great, but they're not blocking. Like, and luckily, I have at least one good friend in our company. I call it Hubro. How many of you know what is Hubot? This one. All right. So not many. Basically, it's a open source project by GitHub. The idea is that there's a in your chat channel there's a bot where you tell commands like deploy this or something like that. There used to be IRC, this chat program, and at that time, like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and still it's running. But anyway, there used to be a bots what did something fancy and funny things, and I used that as a bot in our chat channel. I don't want to be, for instance, I quite often remind our developers that, hey, remember to review the pull request. Or hey, there's a really long old pull request waiting for someone to do something. I don't want to be there, like checking this and reminding the developers to do this or write test, but I want that someone does that. And I don't want to give this to someone else because it will be his job and taking his time. I want to use some bots to remind the developers. So I wrote small script which check from our Git repository how old pull request there is. If they are too old, just ping the person directly in chat. It's happening all the time, and I'm not working. Also, that's how the whole deployment happens. Anyone can go to the chat, ask for, hey, Hubro, please deploy this branch to production. Hubro checks that, hey, okay, the tests are passing for that branch. It's approved by some other developer. Everything looks good. There is nothing going on. All right, I will ship it, and it will ship it. And it will tell you that, hey, okay, it's in production now. So that's that easy. I don't need to be there. Hubro just take care of it. Hubro also alert the team. Like if there's some strange going on in production, it will ping in the channel like, hey, something wrong going on. Please, team, check it out. It doesn't ping me. I don't want to be the guy. I want that the team take care of that. So it will ping in the channel. And they can ask some more info from Hubro. Hey, show me how much CPU we are using or something like that. And the next thing is the latest thing what I did, because I have to set up some monitoring tool. But again, I don't want to be the owner of the monitoring tool. I want that the team owns the monitoring tool. How can I do that? You can read quite a lot about that. Hey, development teams should be also in the alerting, that developers should also wake up at the middle of the night if there's something wrong. But I started to think like, yeah, if they get the alerts, but they don't know how it gets measured, how it gets alerted. They just get the alert in their phone. They don't like that. I want that they actually own the whole thing, the whole pipeline. So for measuring something, using StatsD, but you can use the similar other tools. Collect some metrics from the code, like every time when this piece of code runs, increment some number with 1, or measure how long does this running this piece of block of code running that takes. And developers do that. They add it to their code. They know how it gets collected. Okay, then the tricky part. So I already sent alerts to the team. They are part of the alerting. They are measuring the stuff. How can I set up so that the developers will take care of also defining, like, if this number goes higher than this level, we should get alert. And decided to use a tool called Sensu, but I wanted to be so that the developers really feel like their own the alerts and checks and everything. So in every project, any developer can write their check in the code. Like they already use version control. They already have the code and everything there. So let's have it there. Then they own it. And use exactly the same thing for the stuff what I care, like alert if the CPU usage is too high or something like that. I have own repository for that, so I will do everything exactly like the developers. So from now on, whenever I have to get something new, set up, get some new service or use some new tool, I will go through these checks. First of all, do I really need it? It would be really awesome to try this new technology. And that's quite often why you choose to use something, because it's just so fancy and you want to try it out. And you just prove yourself that, hey, we really need this. Just because you're curious, you want to try it out. But actually, do you really need it? Quite often you don't. For instance, I would really love to try out Docker and Mesos or Docker and Kronos, Kubernetes. But to be honest, actually, we don't need that yet. We're all right with the current Docker setup and with 2 servers because we run fine with that. Maybe later on I do that. All right, but if we really need that, can I actually buy it from someone, like as a service? Because then I don't have to care about it. No one have to care about it. The company have to take care of the service. If that's not an option, can a machine do it? Like Hubro do the job? Then it doesn't take any of our team time. Still, if that's not an option, can someone else in our team to do that? Give it to someone else. I don't want to have it. It sounds like that I'm a really lazy guy, but trust me, I'm not. But if that's not an option, decide that, all right, I will do it. Quite often we don't get up to that point. So some takeaways. As a developer, if you're a developer, and like most of you are, try to build really simple software, because then it's really easy to maintain. And make it really easy to operate to the operation team. Simplicity is great. Also, don't build any hacks on systems there what only you know, because you're locked in that project then, and I think it's not a good thing. Push the knowledge to all the team. Make yourself replaceable. Same thing if you're an operations engineer. Make the infrastructure really simple. Make it so simple that all the developers and the whole team actually understands how it works. Because then, if you're sick or you die or something, the project keep going. And yeah, and push the responsibility to the team. That's all what I have learned so far. Thank you. This happened the same thing last. Oh, right. Cool.
Can I ask, what is the really simple stack you are using for deployment?
At the moment, actually, we are using. Do you know this tool or script called Dokku?
I've heard of it.
All right. So basically, yeah, all the services runs on in Docker containers, but the interface, how developers can deploy something, it's a git push to that server. It's really simple. Developers already does that the same thing, so it's kind of really simple. And I was going to switch to use this tool what the GitHub have published, this Heaven for the deployments. But I realized again, it sounds really awesome. I read about how in GitHub how they deploy software and so on. It sounds really awesome. I already started to install it, and I realized, but do we need actually this no. Again, I'm adding something extra just because it sounds awesome, so decided to skip that. So at the moment, just docu and pushing code. It's really, really simple. Thank you.